Today, we're diving into a really powerful 19th century story that gets right to the heart of some huge questions. Questions about judgment, compassion, and what it means to be beyond forgiveness. It's an incredible tale about a dream, a ghost, and a hunt for one single soul who is truly, irredeemably lost.
And really, it all boils down to this one question. Is anyone, no matter what they've done, actually beyond mercy? This story forces us to look that idea right in the eye. So, let's get into it. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story centers on a very serious pastor who's just lost his deeply religious wife. He's consumed by grief. Then one night, alone in his study, a strange light appears, and there she is, her spirit. She looks kind as always, but she's just so incredibly sad, and you can just feel his heart wake, right? He thinks even she, the best person he ever knew, hasn't found peace. And here's what she asks for. It's a strange one. She says that to find peace, she needs just one thing: a single hair from a sinner who is absolutely, without a doubt, condemned to an eternity in hell. Now, for a guy who preaches fire and brimstone every Sunday, you'd think this would be a piece of cake, right? So, you might be asking, where is all this coming from? This strange request? Well, to get that, we've got to go back a bit, to the sermon the pastor delivered right before his wife got sick, because that's where this whole conflict really started. Just look at the difference here. It's night and day. On the one hand, you've got this dark, gloomy world from his sermon, a world where everyone is wicked and doomed to burn forever in sulfur and flame. But then you step outside the church doors and, well, it's a beautiful Sunday. The sun is shining, birds are singing, and everything seems to be shouting about God's kindness. The clash is just stark. And his wife, she really felt that clash. Later that day, she gently challenged him. She basically asked, "I'm just a normal person, and even I wouldn't have the heart to condemn someone to burn forever. So how could our loving God do that?" So this dream, this whole ghostly quest, it's basically round two of that exact same conversation. And with that, the quest begins. His wife's spirit takes him on this journey, flying invisibly through a huge city. They go through fancy halls and run-down alleys, all in search of that one damned soul. The clock is ticking. They have to find this person before the rooster crows at dawn.
First stop, a huge, fancy ball, a total monument to the sin of pride. And right there at the grand entrance, they spot him, a footman, decked out in silk and velvet, looking down his nose at the crowd of common folk outside.
And get this, they can hear exactly what he's thinking. And his thoughts are just dripping with arrogance and contempt. He sees everyone else as nothing, completely beneath him. This has to be their guy, right? A soul totally eaten up by pride. But then the pastor looks a little closer. And what does he see? He doesn't see some great, evil sinner. He just sees a fool, a poor guy totally caught up in meaningless vanity. And he just can't do it. He can't bring himself to condemn someone to eternal fire for just being, well, foolish. His hand shakes, and they move on. Okay, so on to the next one. They find themselves in the freezing, empty room of a miser. They watch this old man, who's practically a skeleton, shivering as he pulls a bag of gold out from a hiding spot in the wall, his hands trembling as he counts his treasure. And just like before, the pastor looks past the sin and sees the human being. He realizes this isn't about wickedness, it's a sickness. This guy's life isn't full of greedy joy, it's just this joyless madness haunted by fear. And instead of judgment, the pastor feels pity. So again, he can't condemn him. All right, next, they head to a prison. In a dark cell, they find a violent criminal, a guy who's been in and out of trouble his whole life. And he is not sleeping peacefully. He's tossing and turning and crying out. And they hear him confess to his cellmate what's really going on. Turns out, during a petty crime, he accidentally caused the death of a yard dog, and now, every single night, the ghost of that dog comes to him in his sleep and tortures him. He's being punished from the inside out by his own guilt. And this is where you see the pastor's heart has completely changed. He sees a man who was already suffering so much, already living his own private hell, and his instinct isn't to condemn, it's to reach out and protect him. And this is how the whole night goes. They move through all the deadly sins, envy, gluttony, you name it. But every single time, just as he's about to pluck that single hair, he sees the person behind the sin. He sees their story, their suffering, their humanity, and he just can't do it. This whole journey completely shatters his black and white worldview. What he used to call pride, he now sees it's just foolishness. What looked like avarice from the pulpit, up close, it's a sad, joyless sickness. And wrath? Well, that's just a mask for deep-seated guilt and torment. The big takeaway for him is that in every single sinner, he finds a reason for mercy. So there he is. He's failed. He couldn't find a single person to condemn. And at that exact moment, as these tears of not failure but of mercy are running down his face, the cock crows. Time's up. The quest is over. And that's when his wife's spirit tells him what this was all really about. This quest? It was never about finding a damned soul. It was a lesson for him. The real sin, she explains, was his own bleak, unforgiving belief system. She tells him that even in the most wicked person, there's a spark of God, and that spark is powerful enough to conquer any hell. And just as he hears these words, he feels a kiss on his lips, and he opens his eyes. The bright morning sun is pouring into his bedroom, and there's his wife, not a spirit, but alive and warm and real, waking him up. It was all a dream sent to pull him out of his own darkness and into the light. So this old story leaves us with a really big question, one that's just as relevant today as it was back then. When you look at other people, or even when you look in the mirror, what do you focus on? The flaw, the sin, or the struggling, complicated human being underneath? It really makes you wonder, where do you, personally, draw that incredibly fine line between justice and mercy?